welcome to Landscape Photography World, the podcast for everyone passionate about landscape photography. I'm Grant Swinburne and I'll be your host on this show, talking to landscape photographers about their motivations, what photography means to them, and to dig a little deeper into the way they think about their photography. South Australian landscape photographer David Dahlenburg explores a creative life shaped by curiosity, emotional connection, and a deep respect for the natural world. David reflects on how his passion for photography began during a 3-month journey through the UK and Europe with a 35mm film camera, an experience that sparked a fascination with crafting images that feel both captivating and mysterious. His travels through Peru, the USA, New Zealand and across Australia have helped refine his eye and ultimately led to his receiving the 2019 South Australian AIPP Emerging Photographer of the Year Award. David shares how creativity has always been central to who he is, from songwriting and performing in bands to now creating visual artworks that encourage personal interpretation. He speaks about his love for images that hold unanswered questions, inviting viewers to find their own meaning within the frame. Spending long, quiet moments in remote environments has also reshaped the way he sees the world. For David, waiting for light in the wilderness is both grounding and reflective, a reminder of the fragility and value of the landscapes he photographs. He also discusses the joy of knowing that his artwork hangs in homes across Australia and beyond, a meaningful affirmation of the emotional connection his images create. Through his thoughtful process and deep appreciation for the environment, David demonstrates how photography can open conversations and inspire a closer relationship with the natural world. I hope you enjoy the show. G'day, David. Welcome to Landscape Photography World. How's your day been?
Yeah, good mate. Just busy down here in the valley with the 3 kids.
Nice. You live in a beautiful part of the world, one of my favourite wine regions.
Yeah, I'm pretty heavily involved in the wine industry.
Hey, okay, I'll talk a little bit about that later. Be interested to hear your side of the story down there. We're here, though, to talk about photography, so why don't we do a little bit about that? Why is David a photographer and why is he a landscape photographer?
Yeah, good question. Probably started in 2008, 2000. So did a trip to Europe. I just started seeing a girl and she was booked to work in England for a year. Went over to visit her. Did a trip through Europe and my mum gave me an old Yashica, like a 34mm SLR camera. I really had no idea how to use it. But traveled around Europe and then did a few weeks around the UK and Ireland and Scotland and got back to Australia with 25 rolls of film, got into local Kennett.
Yep.
And out of that and had maybe 2 or 3 photos of the rest of it tape.
You didn't do too bad.
So that's what stuck me. I wanted to learn more about it. I already had no idea the mechanics behind the film and the exposure and how the f-stops and the gel, all the rest of it. So I just started reading back in those days. What photography magazine would pretty big.
Sure.
So for a lot of the UK magazines and better photography, plugging away. And then from there, sort of film was pretty I found it a bit more difficult to learn on because I haven't got instant.
Sure.
You can't check your exposure and pretty tight. So I graduated to back then it was a D80 Nikon, which for its time, pretty average camera. We'll come back in a
They all were back then. Even top flight ones were the standards.
And all right.
That's right.
Yeah, that got in. Before that, in planning bands, it's always been artistic but yeah, really enjoy that. Just creating low lights. From capture off through quite post-production and seeing how an image comes to life.
And so what is photography to you now? What is it in your life? What does it mean to you?
I guess it's an artistic outlet. I really like working on projects. Okay. There probably about 8 or 9 years ago. Just after reading Canadian photography you'd be familiar with, yeah, I've come across one of his books and it was all about industrial landscape photography and like man's impact on the environment. That sparked an interest.
Sure.
And I started exploring my own back down in Australia. And I was trying to wrap my brain. Could I use him as inspiration? Wanted to put my own spin on it. Yeah, I got into flying over the Spencer Gulf, and there's a few industrial sites up there. And at the time, there was a big story. It was the first coal-fired power station in South Australia decommissioned.
Yeah.
Yeah, important. And there was a lot of talk in the media. There was a lot of buzz about the airborne pollution from all everything dried out, and there was lots of dust storms. And I thought, why not try to capture that and document something my own backyard? That was relevant in the media. So I did a flight with a local pilot. Everyone was scratching their head. Why do you want to fly up there? So I captured a series I called Everett because they were covering up polluted topsoil.
All right. Yeah.
New soil, and it was quite interesting. Fault lakes with high voltage power lines. So all the vibrant colours from salt lakes, all these sort of remnants from 50, 60, 70 years of coal-fired power station. Yeah, it all come quite nicely. And
Cool.
yeah, and that from there I was doing a body of work. So I like doing projects. So I've got an ongoing project in South Australia, trying to document a lot of South Australia from there.
Yeah.
Both natural and industrial. And then also like documenting the Barossa region where I've lived for the last 20 years. And the foggy mornings and then like the untouched hidden pockets of the valleys. Yeah.
Well, you raised a couple of things there that I want to dig into. First off, I want to dig into the projects, and I want to talk a little bit about place and how that has played a part in your photography, but I'll park that for the moment. What is it that motivates you to do projects and build those bodies of work? Why is that a thing for you?
I'll step back a bit. I think the reason these bodies of work was I went to a workshop in Victor the years ago, Peter Eastman.
Yep.
And it was a couple of days. But the thing I really took out of it, he did a presentation of motivation and how to get inspired and how to learn of photography. So
Sure.
The presentation was all about picking up and studying that to try and work out what's so good about it. Why do you love it? Why are you attracted to it? And with that, I started looking at these people he recommended, did some research, found out who motivated them, and then I started buying a lot of fine art sort of photography books. Guys like, who was it? It was John Paxton, who was like Ansel Adams' understudy. And they had these beautiful bodies of work, which all had a similar theme running through them. They might be a quiet landscape or a case of it was like that industrial photography is almost an essay. And so you spend the most yourself in the theme and expand on that theme as you go. So I think I like having those themes to work within. And then also into the competitions, but I quite like the portfolio competitions where you can tell a story of 4, 5, 6 images.
Yep.
Don't get me wrong, I love the stunning shots to win the awards, but those competitions and 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces together really tell a story.
I much prefer those sort of portfolio comps than the individual shot. Nothing against either of them, but in terms of the preference, I really like those ones where you take a theme and position it in a artistic way and tell the story of either a place or a subject and get people to drawn into that whole sort of ecosystem, if you like, and see what they can take out of it that you have tried to convey.
Yeah, I think she's played most of the time the viewer to be more versed and spend time studying.
Totally.
And that's what you can do with a portfolio. They can really get immersed in the story. Yeah, so that's what appeals to me. And the guys like Edward, they talk about water. Sorry, it could be about water, but it's not just about a river. It's about dams and how the impact of dams have on the environment.
Yep.
It could be looking at oil. And first of all, you see the oil fields. But then he goes deeper and then looks at the infrastructure that's been built for cars. And it really it's a complicated story.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I'm interested in how your personal experiences or emotional reactions influence the landscapes you choose to photograph. Why do you pick the ones that you pick? And is it an emotional response or is it just an experiential thing? What is it that makes you say, okay, that's where I want to go?
As a kid, I grew up in the Flinders Ranges, a place called Appleby, which is up near Port Pirie.
Yep.
And my parents were involved with a land care group. some up on the farm, and then we travel around the state looking at conservation, the conservation across the road, found and get rid of invasive species. And as a kid, you didn't think too much of it, but we did a lot of road trips. And as a kid, again, pretty boring in a car for a long time. I think as I started getting into photography and revisiting some of these locations, just really love to shoot in pen pound.
Yeah.
I love the ancient sort of feeling as you drive into the park. And I guess that's probably from childhood memories from there. But I really like most of my work these days, probably 95% of it would be South Australian. And that would be outback, aerial outback photography. And that is places with 10 Ks in the house. So I guess they're just familiar locations that, especially in Barossa, with your three kids, that can be a lot of time. But I think the bonus to go out there is a foggy model list of places in my head I think will work in those conditions. With the fog over this last winter, probably 6 or 7 times, and it's got in that portfolio of these mysterious sort of images where one of them, I think I spent one's middle next to a house in the state, behind it's a football oval, but in the fog, all that's masked.
Yeah, you can't.
So it's like a whole different dreamy sort of landscape in the little town.
Awesome.
Yeah. Love that exploring every locations of different conditions. Yeah.
So talking about place there, and we might as well touch on it now, I'm interested in how photographers' location, where they live or where they choose to shoot, has influenced how they shoot, as opposed to what they shoot. Obviously, you go to the beach, you shoot in a seascape mostly. You can choose not to, but that's why someone's going to go to a beach or whatever. Yeah. You go to a waterfall, that's what you're going to shoot. But it's more what's around you that has influenced how you shoot.
It's a good question. I guess the style of shopping, I probably haven't. I guess when you first start out, you buy the wide angle lens and you try to capture everything. And of course, half of it's with man-made vineyards, and then half is gum trees and creeks and the classic Australian sort of landscape.
Yeah.
So I guess the style I'm shooting now is probably more zoomed up and trying to isolate interest. And normally it's the old gum tree or it's a fence line or something to anchor the photo. I guess over time, definitely, going from trying to capture big vista. Most photographers probably do when you first get a camera, wide angle lens, and then you don't really know about the hills then become tiny and you lose that visual impact. That's my style's definitely been shooting between 70 mil and 120 mil and to shoot that. I think a guy called I mentioned before, a guy called John Sexton. He was the counterpoint to Adam's Ansel, had the big broad for big landscapes.
Yeah.
He did as well, but where John was more looking at could this be a rock in a creek and then using contrast and bring that rock to life, or having a little grove of trees and then focusing on the series of trucks. So also that's probably more my style, corner lens. And the viewer probably had a feel like that's very Australian. Okay. On Instagram all the time, you shop was Australian.
Yeah.
And they're not those big. Don't get me wrong, I love shooting landmarks. We all love shooting those hero shots. But I can't shooting those landscapes. We can't really tell where it is.
Yeah. No. Well, how do you connect with the place before you photograph it? Do you relying on instinct, research, experience? Obviously, the place is close to you. You've got that experience you've built up over living in a place for some years. You know where to go. But somewhere new, how do you connect with it?
Yeah, and for the local staff was the biggest reason I did work with my kids. My first wasn't a sleeper. Ned, he has a baby. He wouldn't sleep when he was in the car. I'll put him into the car. So I'd drive all the back roads from different every single dirt road in 100k road. I was really love driving, and you don't know where it's going, and he can see, and so that's probably my best research. I wouldn't always stop, but when at the time conditions are right, I'll revisit this place.
Yeah.
Another thing relationships with property owners.
Yep.
So there's a few people around the Barossa being able to side of the fence, and you might see some of the phone come up, and that's what you're doing is explain and throw a couple of the shots, and then they're quite jump the fence and have a look around and building a relationship. That's been really, as in most big places, private property. But how relationships really helps a lot. So that's the local stuff. But when I'm doing the aerial trips, I just scour over maps and Google Earth, and Google Earth's been fantastic.
Yeah.
Trying to get locations, and they're not always. Sometimes you've got high hopes for a location that doesn't quite work out. But other times it's the stuff along the way, the hidden little gems. So you might be familiar. Did a big project with Paul Holland and Tim Wright.
Yep.
Called Altitude South. And I've got a good mate who's a pilot. So I take all these screenshots and make a bit of a list and sort of dot point those locations on the map. And then I'd catch up with Steve and Elaine and just see whether that itinerary will work. When you're flying from the Cessna and you've got limited range and distance you can cover before you have to refuel.
Yeah.
And it's pretty smooth. There's not too many places you can refuel. Steve's like a this all-round good guy. He knows all the outback station owners around South Australia. So caught up and he pulled a few strings and you'll deliver to a few places. So we were able to go to the places you can normally come to SA and they'll go up to Lake Eyre and cover that country and make the local pen. Then we having his knowledge and his contacts, we're able to push the boundaries and get out further deeper often, which probably love the exploring, but also love having those images which haven't been done before.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. Aerial photography becomes an expensive proposition if you don't have a mate with the plane.
Yeah, and I didn't realise the more people I know in Australia now, we catch up and they're going, you got a mate who's got a plane? And I said, what do you guys do? And all we have to use commercial.
Yeah, they hire.
And the rates is eye-watering. No. Well, we're Timmy wrote a fair bit about flying in a chopper in New Zealand. And you go, what? Cost that much per hour?
No, I did one here in Sydney in a chopper and doors off, which was really nice. And I got some of my favourite shots of Sydney. I got this one which is literally straight down over Fort Denison, which is a fort in the middle of the harbour, and there's just nothing but green water around it and this little island. And I felt it in the hip pocket when it was on.
Yeah. That's mate Paul Holland, he's been to Iceland a couple of times and he's a few workshops there. And the price for the Cessna in Iceland is about
I can imagine
7 times the price I'm paying. And that's been a good advantage too, working with a project with the 2 other photographers. We share the costs. And you work on an itinerary where you go from point A to point B, but you got to be really smart about quite often we'll follow tributaries or riverbeds, and then you come across salt lakes. So you're planning a trip that there's lots of points of interest. It could be a mine, it could be you're skirting the edge of a salt lake, Torrens or Lake there or Lake Gann. And that's where you see the interesting stuff, like edges and waterways and salt lakes and So we've been pretty lucky with some awesome conditions, and then also found a lot of interesting places. Our first trip we did together, we followed the Diamantina, or the whole way up to Queensland.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like doing all of flying up over Torrens and Lake and then following all the waterways, and you can really see how the water's carved back. Yeah, you can see and form over the eons.
Did you get up there earlier in the year this year at all?
No, I didn't. It was pilot Steve's not flying at the but we have talked about it a fair bit, me and the boys. It's been pretty tempting. I always found I think it's more when the water's receding. When it's been in flood, which is awesome to see. It's pretty mind-bending to see how much water.
I was flying back from the UK and we're at the usual 30,000 feet, and literally from horizon to horizon, you couldn't see anything but water and little trees and the occasional house and whatever sticking up. Yeah. It was an insane amount of water. I've never seen it that wet out west.
Water. It's pretty impressive. So I've been lucky to see Dane and a couple of my photographers, like down in the dry, cattle country in the dry, and then after a wet season, and looks like a golf course. And then did it again in the dry with Tim and Paul.
Yeah, nice.
Where we came for an exhibition for our first trip. Did about 4,000 Ks in about 20 hours in the plane. And then about 3 months before the exhibition, there was a flood event. We going back 4 years ago and did a last minute trip. And this came across, the contrast is quite amazing. So as we talked before about the projects, and we focused on a few things. Like we focused on that drought and flood, and then we looked at natural beauty, and then the man-made, which was mining, but also you can see how the station countries, fence lines and
the fence lines
and so it really does shape the landscape, especially and dry.
Yeah. Well, you have these little emerald patches of green with a house in the middle of it and everything else red.
You can see even the fence lines that go through the channel country. You can see how they've shaped the water as well. It's nice to take pretty pictures, but that exhibition was really nice. Things running through it, and we had the exhibition in the Barossa Valley. We've got a beautiful local gallery. It ran for about 8 weeks, but we had this short film we made. So Paul had the hindsight to take a lot of footage around the airports and landing strips, and also we put GoPros under the wings, and then we shot a few interviews in the old aircraft hangars. So it was really nice for the viewers to sit down for 10 minutes, watch the video, and get the context.
Right.
And then see, we didn't pick all the prettiest pictures, but we picked 60 images which told that story. Yeah. And we had people come up and some people thought they were paintings and asking what sort of paints we use, because they'd so much to the reference points.
Yeah.
Fishing, the mining stuff, like the tailing dams, out of the soil, what they had through a space. And it's nice, really enjoyable projects that they brought through from that little thought and to send it right through to the exhibition walls.
I'm interested. I've spoken to quite a few aerial photographers or people whose larger bodies of work are aerial and so forth. And I'm interested in how you see whether or not it's more difficult in aerial photography, because you're usually using a fairly fast shutter speed and so forth, to infuse your own sort of style and vision into that sort of photography. Because, as you said, you get quite a lot of those abstracts, but I'm not saying they're all the same. But for some people, you go, oh, yeah, that's a salt lake with an interesting shape, and that's another salt lake with an interesting shape. That's a tailings dam. How do you infuse your own...
That's a good question, yeah.
I guess vision into your images.
Some people you can tell they look like a Europe, for example.
Exactly, yeah.
A post-production style, which the colours are vibrant. Timmy Cook from W. Colour management should be out of this world. You see how those guys do it. I guess my style more so is I look for, you mentioned before, looking at on the salt lake, looking for a feature. I like looking at those features which look like a faint or one image which looks like ghost lake or the salt behind. But I guess you put your own personal spin on it, probably in post-production. A lot of the images, people have asked me the last couple of years for tips how to go about it. And I guess the first step we mentioned about shutter speed and the mechanics of it.
Yeah.
And always don't be surprised if the images don't look that night when they first come out of the back, and the raw image on the back of the camera.
Sure.
And I just work in curves in Photoshop to bring out contrast, and then the byproduct is the color saturation comes out.
Yeah.
Because people I see a lot of the photos quite the same.
Yeah. I think I did a shoot up the Whitsundays in a plane, and Heart Reef looks like Heart Reef, looks like Heart Reef, looks like Heart Reef from whoever does it.
Yeah, that's true. Otherwise,
Exactly, yeah.
Your style probably comes with a collection of 4 or 5, 6 photos, or like we had 25 each. And you're right, some definitely look like it's a Tim or it's a Paul or it's a David. And yeah, I guess you get drawn to different subjects too.
Yeah, that's true.
I tend to shoot like a longer lens, shooting more of those intimate details. The air fluids, I shoot a really big vista, looking straight down, looking at patterns.
Yeah.
My style is I'll zoom up and be more in detail and be more abstract.
Yeah, nice. What does success look like for you in your photography? What is success?
Yeah, it's a tricky one to measure. I've been lucky enough to win a few comps, and it's always nice. It's nice to be recognised, probably more so by your peers. And I think you shouldn't great, but it's I always scratch my head at how many likes you get. Like, can you read them from 50? And there's no wrong or read.
Giving up worrying about likes and what everyone.
Right. So that's not.
Most of my social media is really about promoting this this podcast more than.
No, it's not about the likes. I guess it's not about who you can respect your work, which is not. I was lucky enough last year the portfolio prize to the Australian Photographer, Australian Geographic Awards. And that was really nice. There's lots of press around that and a lot of people interested, reaching out and interested in what we're doing. And yeah, I'm lucky enough to be invited down to give a bit of a talk in the museum in Adelaide, what I do and how I go. Yeah. And that was the spot we go to all the time, the kids. And have you the photos up on the wall amongst there's some pretty amazing work in that exhibition each year. And to be recognised with that collective of people is always really nice. I guess my main goal is to produce a really top-end book, but I'm probably going to work for it. You're always trying to expand it.
Yeah, no, I know. I've spoken to a few people that have created books and whatever, and then you have the cull process because you go, I love this one, I love this one, I love this one, but I can't include them all, so I can pick one out of that four.
So, yeah, I'm trying to. My long-term view would be either to do a book with Attitude South Boys about our flights, or I've covered off a lot, but I'd like to do some more coastline and really have an ode to South Australia from the air.
Yeah.
The next on our list is to go out west to the Bight and try and come with more remote regions inland out near Wool and those sorts of places, but then chap the coastline from the way out west at the cliffs right down to Streaky Bay and down to Leakin and maybe try to do Carolina. But then I won't be satisfied. I'll work in the southeast after that. Really good thing. Done about it.
Yeah, okay.
Which is looking back on the long time, it's fitting in the little center.
It is sad.
That's my long term sort of view would be to publish a configurable book and just to have that body of work together.
The medium of photography is very much about communication, and I'm interested in how much of your success do you attribute to your ability to communicate?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the aerial stuff, I guess it's the conversation there's people came to the exhibition who were drawn to a certain image.
Yep.
And the one story I do remember is it was a lady who grew up on a station, was out near the Stony Desert. And there's one picture who speaks to me. She goes, where's shop? And I told her the rough way fashion. And she goes, it's amazing because there was a couple of Ks. It sounds a long way, from what she grew up.
Just down the road.
Yeah, and but it still had connection. What must be the colour of back in some of the topography. So I think that connection, I guess people are connected to their home state and where they live. I guess my spin is to show them that from a perspective.
Yes.
And I'm probably a bit lucky in South Australia, based in some other states, where it's not as common. Like, I guess people like here, near Spencer Gulf. And I've never seen any aerial photography from that part of South Australia. Yeah, it's like a particular photo quite popular, and it's just a little channel going into an estuary near Portchurch. It's a pretty industrial sort of town, but to show people from back home the beauty, which is like 4 or 5 k's from there where they live, and a whole new perspective. Since we've done that project, I've noticed more people shooting some matter. But it's been nice to be able to explore areas before people get to them. But show people that perspective of their own backyard. And I had a couple of ladies in tears. It was totally moved by the body of work and seeing their home state in a whole new light. So
nice.
So I've always been likes the aerial stuff. Really helps having that mystery around something that the viewer can look at and try to study and have no preconceived ideas of what it is. No, sometimes there's no perspective, there's no reference point. There's no truth or fence line, totally up to the viewer's imagination.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was also conscious of not giving too much information away sometimes in a title or a picture.
Yeah.
Well, people look at it first and then try to work it out themselves. And yeah. And the thing I really love is, like I said before, I mentioned I try to sort of foggy landscape during the day, and they really throughout that mystery. The backgrounds is you can make out trees, or you can't quite make out what's going on. I love that mysterious images which draw the viewer in for longer. Yeah,
I see a lot of your work, particularly some of the project work that you've done, has, I think, quite a strong conservation message. How effective do you think you've been with your efforts in communicating that?
Yeah, I think it's been really a large part of, especially the exhibitions. I always try to put a few of those conservation pictures in. They're not conservation pictures, they're more show closed doors or Mate Paul put it pretty well. Paul Hoffler said, we're lucky in a way to see things you can't normally see from the air. Like from the ground level, you can't get into these places.
Yeah, there's usually a chain link fence around it and
Exactly
security guards and whatever.
And I've never been the environment a lot. I think I can make an impact is showing people what happens. And and I'm not, to be honest, I've got a car, I'll fly around, plane, use the fuel, their cameras, and all sorts of different elements which have to be done on the ground. But knowing, valuing what goes into these objects and being aware of the processes that take place to extract. I'm fascinated by tailing dams, which people always ask me what are they. And I'm not an expert, but they're the leftover bits and pieces from
processing mineral oil.
Flurry and documentary. And they said a high level of platinum concentration, 0.01% of the whole. It's not much when you consider. I can't remember the massive data, but you could it might be 100 ton to make 10 grams. And what happens to all of the rest of the material? Taken where forest just permanently degraded that landscape. Did a lot of coaling dams. We also flew over places like the Lee Creek coal mine, which is decommissioned. And people have part of the environmental devastation, fly over an old coal mine. You can see the over and the black stain on the environment and the polluted water, smoke from underground fires, that oil flickering a lot in the home, and we really have no idea about the mechanics behind that or what's got into it. So, really interesting time.
I personally don't think we hold our miners accountable for doing reparation on some of the landscape that they do. They'll finish up because it becomes unprofitable. There may still be loads of gear in the ground that they were making money out of, and the price changes by 5%, and they go, oh, too hard, walk away.
All the tricks in the lobbies, they've got a playbook. That's how they caught him. What do you call it? It's an expression. When I come back to that, I'm a Method Music's fan, and it's got Steve Earle, he was famous for Copland Road. I saw it in an intimate show in Adelaide, and he talked at length of Australian miners. So he's American, I had no idea. Because once there's not a dollar to be made, they're out of there. They're not going to fix it up. They pay no tax, and then they'll walk away. Eventually, you can fix that as a government.
The government or the local council will end up having to do it because it's poisoning water, the groundwater that the farmers are then trying to rely on when they draw up in a bore, they're getting coal dust in it.
100%. I'm pretty passionate, and it's hard to influence people. It's look at American politics. It's toxic now, but the cult wars and some truth. When I was trying to tell my children that there's a lot of vested interests are putting misinformation out. But what's painful for us, for me, is taking these. You don't have to be banging your chest and plaque. Do you like the look of this? And
is this how you want the outback to look, or wherever?
The way we fix that. And you think they could be 5 k's wide, and there's no most toxic waste known to man. But like you said, once they've got the gold in the mine, they're not going to let's spend the next 20 years trying to fix it. I did talk.
Oh, absolutely.
The nice thing is we, as a beautiful land next to can put a picture of a coal mine. Or that contrast is really cool. Isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
How do you think landscape photography has helped you grow or change as a person?
Definitely made me more aware of the environment and how precious natural landscape is. When you're out there, you can get those, I imagine, great, especially when you're out by yourself in a location around the sunset where the light is flickering and it's quiet. And that's when I feel the best connection to the lens. Yeah,
Definitely. Yeah.
by yourself and probably more so when I'm in the outback, I think. Yeah. Well, something really special about being in those ancient places by yourself. Yeah. It's more significant, in those places. And continuous culture up there for 40, 50, 60,000 years. And that gives you a bit of perspective. That year, it's, like I said before, flying over those locations and seeing how ancient they are and seeing how it's been stuck over thousands of years. Like, you really feel connected.
Yeah.
And also, on the flip side is how precious it is, how we shouldn't be wrecking these places. But,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's nice. Oh, so I'm drawing to that sort of side of it. Also, fascination with South Australia's got a very old farming history, and a lot of the countries was opened up for farming. Exhibition of recently of a couple of painters, and you can see all the old stone buildings. You got the famous midnight oil buildings.
Yep.
Like taking photos. Someone's cliche, but it's a concept for story and what conjures up that storytelling again. Yeah. As soon as you come across an old building, an old derelict farmhouse, or a room, and then just think who built it, why did they leave, how many sheep do they raise here, and it was like
How long were they around?
100%. And mentioned King of Hannah a few times, but it's amazing stories about people going to these sort of remote regions in South Australia, and then most of them they end up with they got this lease, and it was, for 5 years it rained lots, and it was lease in promised land, and it didn't rain for 5 years. So these stories of hardship,
Yeah.
and that's why I guess I find these sort of areas fascinating, because it's deeper than just a picture. It's people use their imagination, I guess.
Let's talk about your lifestyle choices and living in the Barossa, working in the wine industry. Where does photography fit? Is it a full-time, part-time hobby?
Yep. It's not full-time. To be honest, it was pretty realistic. I had the mates I have who are full-time photographers, and they work pretty hard.
Yep.
It's not that conducive to family life. A lot of the guys are running workshops, away from the home, or they have that travel overseas, which would be nice, but with 3 young kids, it's pretty. Yeah, I get out when I can, to be honest. The aerial stuff's been, I can go away for 3 days.
Yeah.
And I try the amount of shots you get back from a short trip. Most trips will be up in the 10, 20 hours.
Yep.
And you come home with dozens of keepers. And so I like to be able to go away 3 or 4 days, take a heap of images. And obviously it's expensive to fly, but you're shooting a fair bit while. And then that gives me the ability of the course of the next few months to then work through those files and then copy photos when I get a chance.
Yeah.
So that's really the beauty for me for the aerial stuff, where I don't have to be out all the time, but you still, have a large body of work to work through. But yes, I don't probably shoot. I'll give a few talks at camera clubs here in Adelaide, and most people are probably shooting a lot more than me. But I pick my time, picking the conditions where if it's foggy or if it's stormy, or quite often trying to get out. Yeah. So it's all about the timing and trying to get the best out of it in the bit of spare time I have. Yeah. But I guess that's, I would like, I said, like to shoot more. I think a lot of my mates will be all around the world shooting location.
Yep.
I get a jealousy out of that. But what I have come to appreciate, that was I moved 4 years the food to America and South America and spent 3 months. I loved it and met some really good people, learned a lot. But one guy I met in the Grand Canyon, Adam Shalau, I spent 3 days with him. He taught me a lot about photography. And he's just based in the Utah from Arizona area. Amazing diversity of landscape in that small geographical location. But I love the way he's 95% of his photos are all from that region. Now he's known as the guy who, Utah, Arizona.
Yeah.
And then we got a couple guys, myself and there's a few guys in LA. There's a guy called Alex Brain, you might know. He was a cinematographer and now he shoots a lot of film. And he just shoots showing the landscape. I love it. But it's nice to see him and God Ben Goods. Most of his work South Australian. So I love having that connection to your own backyard and your own region. We're pretty blessed here. We have beautiful coastline. We have a stunning mountain range. We have the salt lakes and we have the industrial stuff. So it's not yet. I think 95% of my photos I publish now online. All it's come to appreciate it.
Yeah. I honestly can't blame you. It's a part of the world I don't mind getting to when I can, but it's not not somewhere where I get a lot of opportunity.
It's a very spread out.
Yeah.
The towns are spread out. A lot of the locations are a long way from the next place. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Honestly, when I went out, every 100 Ks is a new national stunning and it's where we had the diversity. It's just more spread out.
Yeah. Talking a little bit more about place and pardon me, is there a favourite spot that you've got that just keeps calling you back that you got unfinished business with?
The outback. I love that area. There's always another salt lake you haven't seen someone shoot before.
Yeah.
There's some pretty amazing stuff out west. My wife's family is from the west coast of South Australia. We've done west coast, most Timmy and Streaky Bay and that whole.
Oh yeah.
So there's obviously the coastline is stunning, but inland, she's pretty isolated. But there is these little pockets of salt lakes everywhere. Just as I said before, it's the logistics of trying to get there. But they keep calling me back because they're unexplored from a fine landscape point of view. So those little places which are just out of reach keep me going. And there's places like Lake Eyre which has that pull because that pulls you back. But even now, I've done it many times. You're still going, maybe the conditions are going to be a bit different. It depends how.
So vast as well. You can go there to literally the same spot a couple of times and it'll be different each time. But it is so vast that you can just go, okay, I've been there. I'm going to go 20, 30 Ks up the western side of the northern side of it and just see something.
Yeah, that's right. And that's depends to which direction the wind was blowing from and all the drying out and release those patterns and streaks and abstract and shapes behind. So I guess the outback just keeps on pulling back and there's explored. And last time we did a bit more work around the Cooper's Creek. All the water comes in from the east, opposed from up north. And exploring those, just following those rivers, it could be dry or have little water holes, but just following those waterways is pretty intriguing. Yeah, keeps on pulling back. Yeah.
What's your most memorable photographic experience?
That first trip, it's my third trip north, but the first trip was Paul, Hole and Tim Ray. We came a day early, but when we were at COVID as well. So we condensed a bit of the trip. We flew in one day, from Murray, which is south of Lake Eyre, and we followed the river. So I did 10-hour days in the plane. So these strictly big hours. And we got to Burnsville and shot north of there, the waterways, which are pretty sticky. And then, so back to the pub, it was always great. A few beers each night and took about a day and planned the next day. And then had the bad news with Steve, the pilot, that there's a big storm front coming through. It could be some big thunderstorms. So you're going to cut off by a day. So we travelled back and flew towards Puna Pound and racing this storm back. And we get the storm blowing in from the west. And I gave the warning to the guys that Puna Pound will be no good. It's going to be all hazy, middle of the day.
Yeah.
Get out of sort of that area when it's middle of the day because too much atmosphere. Anyway, after these sort of storm cells blowing from the west, and we got to paying the pound just as there's lightning and thunder, and like you'd never go up in those conditions up the polar bear now today. So never really in danger, but seeing photographing that area from a plane in the middle of the storm, it was magic. We had beautiful light piercing through cloud.
Yeah.
This sort of spot illuminating different parts of the escarpments. Yeah, I had a smile from you. Saying, Steve, I just do a U-turn here and hang left or hang right, and he wasn't responding. And later on, I was trying to be rude, but I've got to concentrate. And he goes, there's stuff going on left and centre.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of the most memorable sort of aerial thing we've done. And the whole way back from there, right back towards the Upper Spencer Gulf, I had an image before about the climate wars between renewables and coal and stuff. Got an image of a wind farm, and there's a massive storm blowing behind it. And that featured in the exhibition. It was a bit of that juxtaposition of that from a coal power station, the new windmills, massive storm blowing. Yeah, it's a pretty special day.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
What about horror stories? You had any sketchy experiences?
Crashed a couple of drones. So I've done a lot of drone work, but there's nothing worse than when, it goes black on the screen, you go, so that's kind of the most gut wrenching when you go, gee, it's $1,000 to down the drain.
Yep.
I've been pretty lucky with gear. I haven't had any horror stories about
That's nice.
broken gear or stolen equipment. But, but those drones being crashed. I think the worst thing is might have been the money. Is the fact you want a unilocation, you want to keep shooting.
You've got to stop because you've
broken it. Yeah, you've got. But back home, my wife generally, what? Oh, crash your drone.
I've killed my camera a couple of times. Just too much salt water inside the body.
Pretty jumping the over in those ways sometimes.
Yeah. Oh,
slippery rock thing.
The worst one was one at Coogee where I had my back up against the seawall there down at the pool, and this wave came in. It was fine. It was ankle deep, washed around my ankles, hit the back of the wall, just went up and over the top of me. Everything was drenched. Me, the bag, the whole shebang. And
that's what I want to with this salt water is the killer.
Yeah, she didn't like that. So that was one new set of innards for it, and I've done it another twice. I've given it new innards because, just get it too wet.
Salt, the killer. I've been at this one drone, but no one crashed in just an inch of salt water on the salt. But the guy went to repair his salt.
Yeah, it's almost literally pure salt. There's almost no O in it at all.
Yeah. So I noticed there's lots of books on your bookshelf.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's been a big thing for me. Is buying these books and really looking at them, like I said before. And that's a bit of the motivation for me, looking at these guys and girls who produce these really beautiful books. And then, like I said, studying those and normally over Christmas time I asked for Christmas, and that sort of keeps me hungry and keeps me fascinating with the next bit of inspiration, I guess.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
What do you like in terms of processing? You mentioned early on you came back with 35 rolls of film. That must have been a bit of a pocket hit when you got to tell it. Yeah. Are you straight into it when you get back from a trip, or do you take your time and just work it through them slowly?
I take time. Normally, there's a couple of hero shots in mind you can't.
Sure.
But look, briefly in the plane for a while. Tom, I can't work together. And I just went back through, you might have 10,000 images there, then you pick out, you might process that few, and then normally the hero shots also very. Recently, I've gone back and look at itchy feet, the flying, I've gone back and over the raw files I didn't ever put into Lightroom and found a bit of gold there. But sometimes you can scratch a bit deeper.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, got those shots. The time are going to come out pretty nicely. But then there's a bit more of the stuff. It's not so specky, but has maybe a bit more abstract beauty about it. And I was pretty lucky, like we all do. It takes, Photoshop's a bit daunting. So quite a few years ago now, and Williams had an easy way. Is that correct, Troy?
Yep.
Yeah. And so I just went my time. Then I just occasionally pulled out. It was probably before the aerial stuff. And there was a couple of little techniques he had to hit curves and stuff. It must be called how do you process it? And my workflow is pretty simple, but I'll just do a bit of work in Lightroom, just a bit of pre-sharpening, and then check into Photoshop, and then I just work on the little details and what the little layers or little curves, adjustments, and just try to bring that little beauty out of different points of interest. It's quite an artistic approach to it. Yeah. So they're still really authentic to the original scene, but just embellished a little bit with just a bit of contrast here and there. Yeah. So I quite enjoy that process. Yeah. It's cool. Once you've done it, it's almost quite intuitive. You can picture in your own mind what you want to achieve and then work my way through it, the information. Yeah.
What about printing? Are you printing yourself or are you using a service at all?
I look at me, it's David Hobbs. So he goes by the title of Master in Print. And he's the top guy. I've looked at all my exhibitions, the Attitude South exhibition and my last couple of exhibitions, all been his printed all of me. First got to know him a while back, and a client wanted to print them, and she wasn't too fussed with what sort of paper. And so I saw him, introduced myself, and gave him a couple of bottles of wine, swivel up.
Nice.
And he's awesome. So he makes all his own profiles.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is the whole something dark, I think.
Yeah, I'm the same. I know enough to get myself into trouble, but to get myself back out of it.
Being the full rabbit hole, I want to go down it. He's got a photography background. He's a real craftsman. I'm happy with my images, and then he elevates them to the next level. And in working with him, he did like test prints on different paper and show reactions.
Yep.
And we've corrected the same paper every time. Yeah, it's an etching paper.
Okay.
That's the brand. As cotton fibre through it to give it texture. So I give the photos a real painterly look.
Interesting. Yeah.
And his theory, when he makes profiles on a really thick profile level, is he'll do test profiles and try to get as much ink as possible into the paper without it pulling.
Yeah.
And the prints come out with beautiful depth. They're very, because of that painterly quality, probably because he's got so much ink.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then he also does it to the point where all the details still remaining. They're still sharp, but they have a beautiful saturation. So not saturation, a depth of colour.
Depth of colour, yeah.
If I hadn't even looked into printing myself, I'd probably print too much. I get excited that then as you finish it. When you edit it, I'm printing that, then where do you put it all?
Yeah. I print a book each year for each overseas trip if we're doing an overseas trip in a year. And it's basically like having an old photo album. And so it just gives you something to flip through. And there's a mix of the art shots as well as some candid snaps and whatever, just phone snaps of wherever we happen to be. And so it's a mix of family album and a bit of art. And
the ultimate is fantastic. Yeah. Otherwise, you can
well, that's it. Otherwise, they're just on the hard drive and no one else will ever see them. And that's not what they're for.
And that's all. The last exhibition I did was with a couple of painters, Stuart Horish and Lake, and another oil painter from Alice Screens, and Georgia Ivans. And it was really nice to have that commitment a year out that we're going to do this exhibition and then to work through that process of building up that portfolio. Not with that timeline sometimes. And it forces you to print your work. Otherwise, it can be a beautiful photo. It lives on Instagram or your hard drive. But until you see the print, like it's a whole different experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know if it lives on Instagram, no one's going to see it but me. So
I'm going to have an exhibition next year as Festival of South Valley.
Nice.
At Peter Lehman Winery. And it's got a theme called Australian Gothic. So it's probably more slightly different to my normal style.
Yeah.
I was trying to explore not darker side of photography, but maybe more of an urban environment.
Yeah.
Yeah, older houses. Also, maybe some South Australian ruins as well. All that storytelling. That'd be good to try and see myself into a slightly different genre. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, not all painters too, because we have a different sort of. It was nice last time. Stuart's an abstract landscape.
Yeah.
George is oil painting, realistic oil painting. And my sort of work is somewhere between got that sort of aerial stuff as well as that traditional Australian landscape. So it's a blend of, and that's the other thing I like about working with people for exhibitions is that just the sheer size of the exhibition.
Yeah.
That whole exhibition, there's 5 pieces in the world.
Yeah.
You think have say, I normally do 10 to 20 pieces, and then have other people doing their thing as well. It's nice for the people coming along to have more time to wander around.
Yeah. I think it's good also because you're mixing it up in terms of, here's a painting, here's an abstract, here's a photorealistic oil painting or whatever, here's a photo, which is abstract or not. And mixing it up actually makes it a little bit more interesting for the viewer too.
That's right. And then you also have different demographics of people. Some people don't want to go into a photography exhibition because they're probably exposed to photography, which isn't always at a high level. And then, then you have the lost photography going on and seeing these beautiful paintings, so they would normally go see as well.
Listen to it.
Yeah.
Have you ever struggled to find inspiration in your photography? And if so, how have you gotten over that?
Again, probably reading books. That's what keeps me going. And not just photography books, also painting. I'm quite different painters and their style. So I've never, early on, I used to get frustrated when you were stuck in the same sort of environment.
Yeah.
I think as I got older, I just realised how probably finding that beauty in different, like the gnarly old gum trees or so, no lack of inspiration around here, that's for sure.
And
okay, more a little bit, or I think all photographers go through all of that from time to time, or they haven't had that sort of that big hero shot for a while, or they've entered a few competitions and haven't had quite the same success as previously.
Yep.
Yeah, I just take it all a bit of a grain of salt now. But if you win the awards, it's always nice, and if you don't win, the judges know what they're talking about. So
don't know who the judge is.
So it's more like they're shooting over foot. So
it's harder than it looks.
For sure, yeah, and it's hard to separate. Also, the national competitions now are judged out of 100. A lot of the club competitions are judged. I judge a few annual competitions with different clubs around Adelaide.
Yeah,
they're judged out of 10. And it's hard to separate sometimes. And yeah, I guess I can put myself in photography shoes. We're all on a journey to when you've had more experience. So yeah, I also like to reward that more artistic, original work. Because, you do see cliche shots a lot, but sometimes it don't really well. Definitely it's rewarding originality and composition and it's taking.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
What's the best and or worst piece of advice anyone's given you?
The best piece was I mentioned before about looking at a painting or a photo and don't just go, I really like it. Think about why you like it.
Yeah.
I read a book years ago called Still Like an Artist. I recommend anyone to buy it. And it has just quotes from could be a famous songwriter or a record producer or a photographer or a comedian. And the best advice would be study the work of people you admire. Don't just do it from one person because then you're sort of being a copycat. But study, copy from 20 people. Then you work out what your style is from them.
Yeah.
That's the best advice I've had. And really, like I said, really study a photo or a painting and work out what makes it work, what makes it tick. I think painters are really good at light, as in, especially portrait painting. I've seen the way the light falls across people's faces and look at the angle of the light, and see why they pop. So that's really valuable. And the worst advice, I think maybe getting into gear, maybe. Like thinking like a gear kind of make it. One of my favourite photographers, Michael Kenner. You've got an old Hasselblad camera, but it's not like they're not super sharp photos.
Yeah.
They're just simple, beautiful compositions with dramatic light.
Yeah.
And I love his work. Like his natural work's beautiful. His trees, photos of trees are beautiful. But I love his industrial work. It could be an industrial dump, but just seeing the shapes and the curves and seeing how the light plays off the surfaces of objects. I don't think the gears are important. You can take it, especially these days, buy a cheap camera in a lens and just go out and practice. And
absolutely.
It's probably worst advice is probably thinking you need a $5,000 camera to make it.
No, this is it.
Yeah, don't be wrong. I'm loving you.
Oh, if Hasselblad wanted to give me one, sure, I'm not buying it.
Oh, phase or whatever, mate. I bought a film Hasselblad an old guy who was in a photography club. He taught me quite a lot. And
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm going to use it. It's probably $10 a click. It's all that, but it's a beautiful object.
Yeah.
It's all that,
Yeah. What do you see as photography's place in society, and where do you see it going?
Powerful as far as photojournalism goes. I think seeing the horrors of the Ukraine war, and there's nothing more powerful than a photo. It's brought the Vietnam War to and when people saw the photos of what was going on. So I think that's as most powerful when it's telling the story.
Yeah.
What was going to replace that? I think Instagram is full of reels and videos. Nothing's touching in it like a beautiful photo. And I think it's always going to go through phases and gimmicks and styles, like the HDR style we all saw.
Sure.
People got into, and
I'm glad we got rid of it.
the impact was huge.
Yeah.
It's dated quite fully. So I think it's always going to be powerful. I think the phone's pretty amazing. Yeah, entered a couple competitions with photos.
Yeah.
Guess what's in your pocket?
Yeah. I forget who said it. Somebody way back in the dim dark past said the best camera you can have is the one you've got with you.
It's 100%, but yeah, if they ever look at that $100,000 camera or something.
That's it.
Yeah, I think you might get saturated, and the dream always rises to the top. And it is hard to break through. Sometimes you get disappointed when you put a photo on Instagram. I think I'm really proud of this. And
Yep.
it definitely breaks through, and it's just after 2 days it fades out and no one's there. But I think, just sticking with it and having that, just keep developing yourself and keep getting better and keep
Absolutely.
that story.
Are there any photographers that you think I should be getting to talk to on the podcast?
Yeah, I've thought I'd have a look through. A lot of the guys have been pretty clever photographers there. One guy I've mentioned before, Alex Frames from South Australia, he's interesting and different. Like a lot of the stuff's on film, expired film, which has got some funky colours from the past. When you look at his photos, you transport back to a different time period, I think.
Right.
So he's got his own style. So I haven't met Alex, but I'd like to hear more about what he does. There's got a Broadbridge, but again, South Australian lad. A few comments on Insta and forth. He's quite interesting. Dave Sanders. Also met him at the Australian Geographic Awards. He's a really interesting guy. Nice guy. Good to talk to. And the guy. I apologise to Andy. So Andy Fockless there. On Instagram, look up Cessna Cam.
Okay.
He's from Melbourne. Met him a couple of times. I think it's a phase 1 camera built into the fuselage of the plane.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Not in his work, but he'd fly over.
No, I can't say I have, but
Fly from Melbourne to Kimberley and go over these remote salt lakes like crazy.
well,
And his photos can be 3 meters wide. He had an exhibition in Adelaide, couple of exhibitions, and I've caught up with him. Top bloke, really nice. Interesting guy to talk to.
yeah.
He's working consulates around the world. He might have some contacts, like the French Australian consulate in France. They have big exhibitions and shows. His work's beautiful, and the detail is amazing. They're 3 wide prints, and you know that to them, and there's just so much going on and so much detail. So Andy would be a really interesting kind of avenue. You sure, yeah.
I'll definitely be looking him up. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, my last question, everybody knows, is coming. Do you like pineapple on pizza?
Don't mind it.
Okay.
Don't mind a bit of a sucker for a chicken pizza. Just a bit of mozzarella, a bit of prosciutto,
Yeah.
a few mushrooms. Never mind that.
Sure.
So it got to be.
Oh, absolutely. It's all about the base, and it's that combination of the tomato, the ham. It's got to be the right sort of ham and the right sort of.
Have you thought on the frosted locals? Yeah, because of that. And about 4 sorts of prosciutto. So,
Yeah, nice.
yeah, well for choice. Yeah.
Oh, thank you very much, David. It's really been wonderful having a chat to you and getting to know you a little bit better. Where can people find your work?
My up to date would be on Instagram, so David Dahlenburg Photography, and then the website. David Dahlenburg Photography. It'll come up on the website. But the website's dated, but a lot of work on there. Little links to interviews, those from Attitude South, some ADC interviews and bits and pieces. But
Awesome.
try to put interesting stuff on it. People make mode. Did you ever say yell out?
I definitely will. Cheers. Thanks, David.
Cheers.
Have you ever done any aerial photography? If so, leave a comment below. I'm interested to hear from the audience. Thanks again for listening to the Landscape Photography World. I hope you enjoyed the show, and keep listening because I'll be joined by some great guests in upcoming episodes. You can find my work in this podcast at gruntswinburnphotography.com, along with prints and photography gear. I'm also on Vero, Photo, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Blue Sky. Don't forget to comment and subscribe because it really helps the podcast to get seen and heard. I'm Grant Swinburne. Hope to see you out shooting soon.